Hey guys, my name is Matthew and I'm going to be showing you how to do a haircut today with detachable blade clippers, starting with a number 2 blade. It's going to go from a number 2 down into a 5-0 or a 5-aught blade. So when I cut hair, I fade backwards. Traditionally, you would fade putting a bald line in with the 5-0 and cut up into the 2. I cut down the 2, 1.5, 1A, and so on until I run out of hair to cut. And this is the 1.5 blade here. And whenever I fade, I try to keep the blades somewhere around 1/4 of an inch away from each other as I go down. So you'll notice this one, the 1A blade, I'll go almost up to the line where I use the 1.5 blade, about 1/4 of an inch away. And as I go up underneath it, I'll start to flick out a little bit. And I'll do that every step of the way. You can kind of see it a little better on the round of his head on the back, how I'll get up to the top and I'll kind of flick out. I'll do that every step of the way from the 2 all the way down to the 5-0. Now I'm switching over to the 1 blade here. And I'll follow up underneath that 1A blade. So the reason I fade like this, fading down, is you'll notice that there are no lines being put in the haircut. You have to know where you want those lines to be, but if you put the line in, then you're going to have to cut the line out. Sometimes it can be pretty difficult to do that, or it could be a little more time consuming than you'd like. Fading backwards like this, you should be able to knock a haircut out in about 20 to 25 minutes. That includes the scissor cut portion and everything. So, going on into the haircut, this is the OA blade, the 0A blade. And when you first start out using these, you'll notice that the measurements are a lot different than your typical guards, like the plastic guards that you would use on a levered clipper. Those would go in 1/8 of an inch, so a 1 on a plastic guard would be 1/8 of an inch. But the 1 on the detachable blades is quite a bit shorter than that. So this is the 000 blade or 000 blade. This one would be roughly the equivalent of your levered clippers, closed all the way. I'm just going to go in and almost finish up the haircut with that. And again, I'm keeping every single blade somewhere around 1/4 of an inch away from the previous blade, and then flicking out. And I'll do that all the way around his head. This is the 5-0 or the 5-aught blade. This one is roughly a trimmer level equivalent. So like I said earlier, you would, in traditional fading, you would take this blade and you would put in a bald line, a really low bald line, and cut up until you get to that 2 blade. But the way that I faded, as you go down, you're cutting and blending at the same time, so you never really put any kind of weight line into the haircut, any kind of bald line into the haircut to start. It's a little tricky when you first start out because you have to imagine where you want all of your lines to be, but after you do it a few times and get the hang of it, it's really not that hard. So I'm going to keep this super, super low, just on his sideburns. This is the foil shaver to take it all the way to skin, and then using it on the nape of his neck. If you'll notice the way that I'm using it, I'm rolling it down instead of cutting at the bottom up. It's really, really easy to put in a harsh line with a foil shaver. So if you roll with the grain instead of against the grain, it's a lot easier to avoid putting a bald line in. So this is just a pretty simple scissor cut across the top. I'll elevate his hair up and back just a little on his fringe area, on the bang area. That way I can leave it a little longer. He kind of wears it just like a side pomp. So I'll leave it a little longer in the front. But as I'm going back, I'll cut his hair just a little shorter every section that I take until I get to the back of his head. You can see that I'm getting my fingers are getting closer and closer to his scalp, so I'm cutting just a little more every time I take another section going back to his crown area. And then when I cross check, you can see those big waves in his haircut from the previous cut going from front to back. After you do the initial cut, you need to stand to the side and take those lines out. And what I'm doing here is I'm putting my finger inside of his whorl area on his haircut before I blow dry. That way whenever I blow his hair dry, it doesn't stick up or poof up. It just makes it a little bit easier to blow it dry and style it. So like I said, I kept his front just a little bit longer. Because I did that, you'll see a little bit of a weight line that I have to take out with the texturizing shears. And so I'll pull it back. You can see right there's a little bit of weight that'll start to hang down. So I'll go through and I'll take as much of that out as I can. What I'm doing now is I'm just hitting his parietal ridge area, the round of his head. After you use those detachable blades, it can still sometimes leave just a little bit of weight in between the clipper cut and the scissor cut, shear cut portion of the haircut. So I'll just clean it up with texturizing shears and just finish his haircut off by trimming the rest of his neck. I always put a little aftershave on him at the end until he doesn't like it very much. But and then this, I'm putting a little bit of product in his hair. It's a matte pomade. You can't see it in his hair, but it'll hold it in place, and that's pretty much the haircut.